And I thought to myself, as I was driving back to Twin Cities, I thought to myself, I'm like, if he dies on that bed, like his legacy goes with him. And it would just be us, doing this whole like, oh, we remember him as blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Then that day changed the way I thought about food. Wow. So I thought to myself, you know what? No longer is this about, and I say this with the utmost respect, no longer is this about the Hmong people, but this is actually about my mom and dad. This is about their legacy.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Social Exchange Project, a podcast that provides extraordinary people with a platform to share their story. This is your host, Sheng Waldinger, and I have with me Penny Vang from episode 4, who is joining as a co-host today. Do you want to say hi?
Hello, I'm happy to be back.
We're so happy to have you back. But I actually want to introduce our guest of honor today. He is the Minneapolis-St. Paul Chef of the Year, the owner of the catering and pop-up restaurant Union Hmong Kitchen, host of Relish, a PBS web series showcasing chefs inside their homes, and the most influential ambassador of Hmong Cuisine ever, who has also appeared on Taste Made, National Geographic, and CNN. That was a very long bio. Yia Vang!
Thank you so much
Yay,
for having
we're
me.
so excited to have
Thanks.
you. Who drove here from the cities this morning.
It's not that. It's like not bad. It's nice.
That's good.
Yeah, to get out. Yeah.
That's good.
And think the
Yeah.
drive.
Yeah. It was like
Well, Penny
hours.
also drove here from the cities.
How long did it take you, Penny?
Probably an hour and a half.
Man, I go fast, I guess. I like hour 20.
Really?
Yeah. But like,
Oh my
I really
gosh.
try to push it. I'm like, okay, we can do this.
We got this on
It's like-
tape. Illegally, he's driving
like-
really fast.
Yeah. I always go, no English. No English. Gucci
That's funny. So
Feeding
I have
into it.
honestly I literally want to get into the elephant in the room because you guys just announced that you guys are
Yeah.
opening up a brand new restaurant
Mm-hmm.
and had found permanency somewhere, although that's
Yeah.
kind of a mum right now.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what
Definitely.
that journey's been like? Because I know that your journey has been more so a pop-up. You did a lot of creative collaborations with people, and you kind of just sat in residency with Social Cider Works. And that's ending this month, right?
No.
Oh, it's not. Okay. I
No.
want to know more about what's happening.
Yeah. So, set the record straight. We've been at Social Cider Works for a year. So what happened was about a year and a half ago, Sociable said, "Hey, we want to." Sociable Cider Works is it's a brewery, so they do cider and then they do a little bit of beer. And they're like, "We want to have like some kind of food element here." And we did a few collaborations with them, and so they're like, "Hey, we're actually buying out this really big food trailer. Would you help us design the food trailer? And then after we're done, do you want to be the resident in it?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure." And so what they said to us is, "We want to help you to achieve your goal because brick and mortar has kind of always been the goal since we started." And so they said, "Hey, how do we help you with that? Well, we want to give you a residency where we'll just kind of give you a permanent home, or sorry, like
indefinite. Temporary. home.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we're like, yeah. And so January 2nd was literally when we started last year. And we went right into the winter and we're like, my mentality was, I guess I feel like it's like the Hmong way. Like there's probably a smarter way of doing it. Like, hey, let's start in the spring. But like, I guess like the Hmong way is like, let's just toughen through
When there's
it.
opportunities, you just take it and toughen through it.
Yeah, like adversity builds strength or something like that. I don't know. Like,
Such character building.
Yeah, it's just like when I was young and my dad was like, we're like 10 years old. My dad's like, let's go cut the grass, and I'm like, but Dad, I'm tired. It's like, you know what? We were tired when we crossed the Mekong River, and you're like, oh, okay. No, so we started right in the winter time, and it was tough. Like there were some tough times. There was a lot of growing pains there, and then when we hit spring and summer, it went really well, and then but in the back we've always were kind of like, hey, we want a brick and mortar. So
what is brick and mortar exactly?
Yeah, so
because I see that hashtag,
Yeah.
but you guys, your new restaurant is actually called Vinai, right? So tell us more about
so
the
brick and
names.
mortar in the restaurant world. You have so the word restaurant is a very like junk drawer word. If you really think about that, restaurant. What is a restaurant? So the way I define a restaurant is a restaurant where is a place where food is made, food is served, and hospitality reigns overall.
Sure.
So, but you can literally do that in a food cart in the corner, right? You take a food cart, you're cooking food, people are eating. So the restaurant is not about a building. It's actually about the people. It's about the heart. It's about, so what we decided was, hey, we want to start using the language of like that, because people always say, oh, you guys are just a pop-up, or you're just a catering thing, or you're just this. And it's just like, there was this we felt like there was this devaluing of what we're trying to do.
Like what you offer.
Like, you're not real. Like
Sure.
It's like, hey, you're not a real boy yet. Like Pinocchio style. Like, you're not a real boy. Like, one day you will be. And we would always laugh about that. Or, I think there was a publication that said, oh, like, best chef without a restaurant. And I'm like, we have one. Yeah. I get what they were saying.
Yeah.
So we started using the term brick and mortar, which literally means something that stands still and that can't be moved.
Sure.
That's not on wheels, you know. And so brick and mortar just basically means like a permanent place. So that's why we always say a brick and mortar. And so, yeah, so that's
So no matter where you go physically, that's really the concept of what you're providing.
Yep. So, that was just kind of part of what, it's like kind of controlling the narrative a little bit, being able to say, hey, like, this is kind of what we're trying to do. But one thing that really started evolving when we first started out as a pop-up, literally we were just cooking out in the back of my brother's house. It was super ghetto. I mean, and like janky too. Like we would just be like, yeah. You ever seen the old show like MacGyver?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we Hmong-Gyvered it, where you're like, there was some situation. I don't know, younger people probably don't realize.
Hashtag Hmong-Gyver. What is it?
Hmong-Gyver.
Hmong-Gyver.
Yeah, I learned that term from my dad. So,
Really?
Oh yeah, like my dad would always tinker with stuff outside, and my mom's like, or we'd be like, Mom, what's Dad doing? And he's like, oh, he's MacGyvering things, because that's like one of the shows they watched when they first came to America.
You make everything out of
nothing.
Much.
Yeah, it's like we got chewing gum, we got tinfoil, and a stick, and build a car. So we would always jokingly say, we got to MacGyver this, and that's how we started, and it was totally illegal, like not like, health code, blah, blah, blah. But it was like we were just hustling. And we started literally in the back of our friend's house.
So what were you cooking? And how did this come about?
So let's rewind. So I'll just go from the beginning.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah. I grew up in the restaurant world. I started cooking. I started as a dishwasher.
In high school, right?
High school, yeah. I started as a dishwasher because my buddy's uncle owned a golf course. And it was, like the golf course, like supper club place that was there. And once in a while, they'd be like, hey, yeah, do you want to come do dishwashing? I'm like, yeah, sure. I would say yes because.
And it was just a job, right?
It's like, you're like 15, 16.
Yeah.
It's like $10 an hour. You're like, oh my gosh. Yeah. And they like paid you cash, and you're like,
making bank.
But one of the biggest things was like, they on Friday nights or Saturday nights when they had like big banquets, they would have like roast beef or like prime rib. And if you're a dishwasher, at the end of the night, whatever they didn't eat, like you could have it. So I like, yeah. So I'm like, yes. Like,
so you got the hookup.
Oh yeah, like this is the only time I can have prime. Like in a Hmong household, like you would never just.
You don't eat that often.
Yeah, like a prime rib. Come on, So
it's better than commission.
Oh,
honestly,
I know. I was like, I would just do prime rib for like I don't care about the salary, or whatever.
I'll take a garbage now for prime rib.
Yeah. So that's how it started, and then I think one of the cooks kind of liked me. He's like, "Hey man, go peel those potatoes." I'll be like, and then I'll turn it into a game, like in 50-pound potato. How fast can I do a 50-pound? And then and then like just cooking was kind of behind, like I kind of just knew it. I'm a ambulatory learner, so I need to move my hands. So like.
Yeah, and that was actually something too that I learned about you because again I've been following you for a while. That you learn by doing. You're a hands-on learner.
Yeah.
And food and cooking is essentially just that.
Yeah. And a lot of that I realized, like, so when you're young like that, you're like, oh, whatever, But as I got older, I realized that like a lot of that is my father. Like he's a builder, So when we moved to America, he started his job as a carpenter, then he became a welder, and then he built homes until he retired, So like he could look at a table and be like, okay, and in his brain, like just make up the dimensions in his brain and then like build the table. So like he could take wood and he could take whatever material and build anything out of it. And so he's always worked with his hands. And sometimes I think in the Hmong culture, like we don't value that because we value like the
brain,
like the education,
Yeah.
you know, which
Yeah.
Like, be
I
a
mean,
lawyer,
I
be a
value
doctor.
too,
Yeah,
but I see it
value
as
that
equal.
also.
I see it as equal, you know, where it's like, oh, you're not the one with the 4 degrees, and
Yeah.
you know, you're not. If you're not doing that, then there's kind of like, oh, that's nice, kid, but like, you know, you go more schooling, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where kind of a side tangent, but I think that's where sometimes we get where we have, you know, people, you know, like young Hmong kids who are more artistic and they're better at that.
I just don't think we encourage that enough sometimes.
And
you
it's
know?
like, oh, like someone you know, and stuff like that. But it's like, dude, but do you see the creative side of it?
Right.
And so,
have you seen the drawings? Have you seen
Yep.
the music that they've created?
yeah,
Or even if they're, you know, a lot of people now they do dance art, and I don't think that deserves the most recognition, but it doesn't always get that in our culture sometimes.
well, I think also in our culture, all of that has to kind of equal like money, you know,
Yeah, I
because
think
it's
they
like,
always say that, you know, those things aren't going to cut it, you
Yep.
know?
like
Like
how do you
success is defined by money.
Right.
Yep, that's what it is. But as I look deeper into that, it's a little tangent here, but as I look deeper into that, I realize that that's kind of like the older generation, or even our mom or our grandparents, our mom and dads and our grandparents' generation, is saying, we want you to be sustainable.
Yeah.
It's out of a place of love.
Like
Right.
we want you to be better than what we had
Exactly.
and us.
It's out of a place of love,
Absolutely.
hands down. But I think that it gets lost in the communication, where then that kid who probably, you know, is really great at art feels like, well, I'm not as valued as my brother who, you know, is a lawyer or whatever,
doctor.
or a doctor, or you know, or running some kind of, you know, big CEO of some big business, you know.
Sure.
And so there's that. So I always felt like that because I couldn't, like, for me, like reading, writing, all that stuff, it's just like, too much. But I get so bored, and I'm like, man, like I just want to touch things with my hands. I want to build. But in the cooking world, like that just made sense. So that was,
You're meant for a totally different path than what your
Yeah,
parents maybe thought you.
but I fought it.
Yeah.
I never wanted to cook. My whole life's goal was to get out of cooking.
And that was something that really interesting to me because, again, I have been following you for a while too. And that was something that wasn't in the cards for you. It was just something you were doing, but not something that you were living and breathing and bleeding into.
Yeah.
How did that change?
Well, it really, so again, my whole goal is, so I went to college. I finished with a degree in interpersonal communication and like minored in PR marketing. And my whole life was like, yeah, I'm don't want to be near the kitchen. But all through college, I worked part-time in a kitchen, you know, in restaurants. And then I ended up in the Twin Cities because I knew that I wanted to go there because, you know, I just firmly believe there's an author named Thomas Keller, and Timothy Keller is Tim Keller, and he has this book about how culture starts in the city. He talks about like metropolitan areas where like that's where culture starts, and if you want to change culture, like that's where you go. I'm a country boy, so I'm from Wisconsin. I'm a Wisconsin kid.
Woo.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, I'm Wisconsin kids. I love my Culver's, you know, double cheeseburger, you know, like.
Oh my
like,
gosh,
like,
you were speaking our language
I know,
right
like
now.
at the end of the day, like I'm still a Wisconsin boy, you know.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, like I don't like big city stuff, but you know, ended up up in the Twin Cities, and I couldn't, like the only job I found was like managing like big catering places and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a job, and then eventually I ended up working for a really big church. So I ended up being basically the church lunch lady because it's a really big church. They have like different like food programs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny. Like the first time I got the job, there was the IT guy. Him and I were over the email, and I'm like, hey, I can't get into this password thing. You know, like I can't log into my email, blah, blah. So he came down to the kitchen to help me, and then he looked at me and goes, oh, you're not what I expected, you know, because he's the IT guy, and we've only been through email.
Oh, sure.
So when they heard that Yia Vang was, you know, brought in, they thought, because the lady before me was a 65-year-old like lady.
Did he think you were like an old?
He
lunch
thought I was an
lady?
old like. He's like, you are not an old Asian lady that I was totally thinking of. Even
So
when
I know, not to make you feel bad, but our grandma is also named Yia. So
Oh yeah, you know,
shout
my
out to our grandma.
yeah, I got a cousin named Maya also, you know, so
It's common.
yeah, it was common, yeah. So what eventually I always tell people is that like I don't think like I went out and sought like the cooking world. Like I
Yeah.
think
It found you and
found
kept
me.
you.
Yeah, because so when I started working there, what happened was one of the pastors there, who is my really really good friend, Ming Jin. He's Taiwanese Chinese guy. His title is pastor of community outreach. So basically, he's the party pastor.
Mm-hmm.
So to reach the community, you just throw parties and do gatherings.
It's
So
like PR.
yeah, so we just started doing things together, and we started this thing called Crowded House, where literally we went in the back of people's house, and we didn't know at that time, but basically it was a pop up. So it would be like we go in the back of people's house and we set it up to look like a really welcoming. Like we had a bunch of really artsy people, and they put on like little nice tinkle lights and did artsy stuff, and then I would just make this big cauldron of pho, and then we just do like a little pho shop in the back, and it's $5. People come in $5,
Awesome.
and we just called it Crowded House. And every people came, like 180 people, and we didn't realize that what we were doing is quote unquote a pop up. We just called it Crowded House, and people just gathered and ate. And
I
then
think people love that though.
Yeah.
Like that kind of
People
atmosphere.
always gather on food.
yeah.
You connect over food,
Yeah.
over a meal. I remembered
Yeah.
you saying in an interview that you worked at a lot of like fancier places. Like, did you work at an Italian restaurant or something like that? Or you worked at
in La Crosse, I did.
Yeah.
But like up here, I worked at some of the kind of really high end restaurants, and
yeah.
high end, whatever you want to call it. But
Fine dining.
Yeah, yeah. But still, at that time, I didn't want to really make Hmong food because there was almost with someone like an embarrassment because Hmong food, like you couldn't categorize it.
And honestly, this is how I always kind of viewed it, because I always, thought of it as like peasant food. Like it wasn't, and it's embarrassing for me to sit here and say these things. But when I was younger, I was like always embarrassed. Like if my mom wanted to pack me lunch or something, it's like I always wanted it to be like Mika food or American food or
Like
white food.
Ham and cheese sandwich.
Yeah, or something.
Like
I don't care,
chips.
even if it doesn't like fulfill my soul. Because I feel like our food is soul food.
Yeah.
But I was always embarrassed because it was really pungent or something like that. And I always just wanted it to be like
you don't want to be the
food.
weird kid, especially growing up in.
I was always the weird kid.
Yeah.
But
So for some of us, it was like we were already the weird kid, but then we didn't want to be the weird kid with the weird food. It's like at least if I'm
Who
the
made
weird
it
kid,
extra weird.
yeah. So like at least if I'm the weird kid, at least
give me a ham
like,
sandwich.
Yeah, like give me the normal food that I can trade.
Yeah.
Like one of those pudding cups that I can trade and stuff. Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to trade quotsal,
Yeah.
or but now they do. All the hipsters want it.
Now now we're cool.
Yeah.
But like back then though, even just the idea of like, because both Penny and I were born here, and I know we'll talk more about this too, because your restaurant is an homage to your parents.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
Vinai is essentially the refugee camp that you grew up in.
Yep.
So we can talk about that too. But we didn't have those experiences. My older siblings did.
Yeah.
But I didn't. And not that you remember so much about that, but just knowing that, I think, changes so much of how you view your opportunities here in America.
So you don't mind if I go back a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. You go all the way back.
No. So what happened was, I worked at these restaurants. Things were going really well, and then something just hit inside my heart where it's like, man, like I don't know if I'm not really loving this, and so for health reasons too, I was like, okay, I need to step away. So I stepped away from the restaurants, but then like I still had the itch, and so it's like, well, what's the next step? And literally, a friend of mine had a restaurant in Eastside St. Paul, Cook St. Paul, and it was a diner. So it's like breakfast and lunch only. So there's like, hey, Fridays and Saturdays, you can come in during dinner time and just set up pop up.
Can I ask you really quick, what brought you back? Like, what were you itching for? What was that feeling?
So I was cooking in this restaurant, and I sat there and I was doing my area of cooking, and I looked up, and there was these three ladies that were kind of by the chef counter. They were eating, and then the server went over to check them out, like give them their check, and then I could see the POS system, like the register or whatever you want to call it, and out of those three, I think their full bill was like almost $600, and it's awesome. They're having a great time, and I just thought to myself, I'm like, man, like, my friends and family, or the people that I love the most, they wouldn't be able to enjoy this, because for them, maybe it's like a place where they come once every year, whatever. But it's not a place where they can say, hey, this is ours too, And that started to kind of change the bug inside of me. And what really took me back was going back and eating my mom and dad's food and how there was a soul care there, you know, and the simplicity of it. And so it drove me to understand, to go, hey, I want to understand Hmong food. You know, it's the food of our people. It's the food I've been eating growing up. And what we started coining is this phrase that Hmong food isn't a type of food. It's a philosophy of food.
Yeah.
It's a way of
totally
thinking
agree.
about food.
Yeah.
I agree about that too. And so going back to always those roots in the soul of the food that we offer as Hmong people. Like my mom right now can literally have the same ingredients as me and I can't make it as well as she can. Like her food just tastes like love, you know? And so seeing that your parents inspired you, especially your mom too, inspire you into getting into this. How did that transition then into you wanting now to do Hmong food?
Yeah.
When you were once not as proud, but now you're so proud.
Yeah. So let's fast forward a couple years. We've been doing this pop-up for a while, and we really felt great about the fact that now we're starting to have a voice from Hmong food, you know. And so every time you do something, there's always two groups of people, right? They're the people that support you and then the people that criticize. And once a few of the media stuff start hitting, we would get a lot more like critical comments. So it's like, oh, you're not really doing Hmong food. You're just doing a fusion of Mika and Hmong food. You're bastardizing our food just so that you know that you can get your name out there. And it's just people we didn't know.
Like that you were a sellout or something.
Yeah,
but
like
you
you're a
obviously
sellout.
were not. That was your philosophy of food.
And it's like, oh, like real Hmong food is you got to use this kind of knife, you got to use this kind of board, you got to use this kind of ingredient. You guys aren't doing that. And then I would kind of push back going, well, if you understand Hmong food has always been about whatever region we're in. Because that's the kind of people we are. We glean from the cultures around us. We glean from the resources around us.
We borrow concepts. We take from around us or borrow from around us.
And then we take that and we forge it into our, you know, to build our own people, you know, and that's what being Hmong is about.
And I think that's so interesting because that's literally the root of all that is the historic value of what Hmong people have brought to this world and all the different countries that they lived in is because we are very simple people. We just wanted to, you know, have a home. Yeah. And we
adapt,
and I think that a lot of our people have been oppressed for many years, no matter where they went. And we borrowed all those different concepts of what food was, like from China and Vietnam and Laos. And now we're in America, so we're borrowing concepts.
So what I would always say is if you want to know the Hmong people, know their food.
Yeah.
And if you look at our food, what you really see is that our cultural DNA is intricately woven into the foods that we eat. So our food actually tells the story and the history of our people. And so as we thought about that, we just coined the phrase that every dish has a narrative. You follow that narrative long enough and close enough, you get to the people behind the food. And once you're there, it's actually not about food, it's about people.
It's true.
Food
It's
is
about the communion of people.
And then food is the catalyst into cultivating great relationships. And that's what being Hmong is, if you think about that.
Yeah, it is.
Because like
true.
when you go to if you go to a Hmong household, what's the first thing they'll say? Do
you want to eat something?
Yeah. Oh, like they'll bring out fruit. You know, like no, you're kanong.
The hospitality.
Yeah. And
It's hospitality. It's welcoming people into your home.
and that's part of the food. Like, but there's no way of explaining that to like my Mika friends who are like, oh, what makes Hmong food? I'm like, you gotta come and let my mom cook for you. Because the moment you step into the moment you leave, that's all
it's the
Hmong
experience,
food.
essentially
Exactly.
speaking. It's the experience. It's the hospitality. It's wanting you to feel so comfortable being in the same environment as loved ones. Yeah.
So, well, then how do you take that and express that into a plate? So that was kind of the problem. We were having there was a lot of critiques of people coming in, and people that didn't know us. You know, like, you know, when that Taste Made video came out, we were super excited about it.
I was excited. Honestly, when I saw that, I was like,
it's a really cool video.
Man, that is our food. Like, who wouldn't want sausage and sticky rice and pepper and cucumbers? Who would not want those? Those are all the elements of what makes a great dish.
When that video came out, we got a bunch of like kind of haters came out and they goes, that's not even real sausage. It's not even a casing. And I'm like, you guys don't even know the definition of sausage, dude. Sausage is the meat, not the casing. And so they're like, oh, like, why are you doing it that way? That's more Japanese style. And like, so it was just all these things. And I was really like, part of me was like, I felt depressed. I was like, man, like, and I felt like, I'm like, Hmong people, we're trying to do this for you. And you guys are just kicking us. And so I just didn't, I think I went through like almost a year of like, what's going on? And then what happened was about almost 3 years ago, my dad had a really bad accident at work, and he ended up in Marshfield, ICU up in Marshfield clinic. And it was really tough because he was in the ICU for probably a month and a half, a little bit more. It was a head injury, so like the doctors, like right away, the doctor's like, we don't know what's gonna happen. It's really bad. So I remember going to visit him in the ICU, and you gotta understand, my dad fought in the war. He sacrificed everything. Him and my mom. They got us to this country
at a very young age. I think I remember seeing that. He was like a teenager.
Yeah, he started at 12. Like him and his brothers, they all like joined up. I never really knew the story of my dad until we were interviewed by Kumar Bell for the CNN show, United Shades of America. And we were sitting there, and my mom is just telling all these stories about my father. And I'm like, what? Like I'm 35. I've never heard any of these things. And they start showing these pictures of my dad in the war. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, I grew up with these pictures, but I didn't know the story about, the guy he was standing by, like what happened.
Like that. I saw that too, because just the fact that you said it was like a double-edged sword to have a photograph that validates you as somebody who fought in the war on the side of America, like America, but also was your death warrant was what you said. I remember.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
And so I was like, I'm walking. The ICU is always really weird for me. So I walk in, like it was on a weekend, so all the lights were off. So my dad's there, and he's all like tubed up a little bit, and he's groggly, and this is my hero, right? And he's laying there, and I'm like, hey, Dad, like I'm trying to, my mom said, hey, the doctor says go in there, see if he can, remember who you are, because it's a head injury. He's having memory issues. So I remember I looked at my dad, and I said hi, and and he's kind of groggly, and I'm like, hey, Dad, do you know who I am? And he looks at me, and he's like, I think you're my son. I think that's what he said. And then I left. Like I was trying to hold it in. I was just like, man, like there was a lot of tears. I was like, I was just like, I left, and like, all our cousins and relatives were there, and they're in the waiting room, and so like, it's just, how Hmong people are. It was like a big party fest, and there was like, not a party, but you know what I'm saying? There's like food everywhere.
There.
Yeah, you guys know what I'm saying? Like food everywhere. And it's just like, I feel like in the waiting room here, they just cleared it all for us, and so I left, and I mean, I was angry because I thought to myself, I'm like, this is not how a warrior is supposed to go. This is not how my hero is supposed to die. There's two ways. One, you do it on the battlefield, or two, you die of old age telling the stories, like with
this dignity.
Yeah, with dignity, with pride, and people come in. And I thought to myself, as I was driving back to Twin Cities, I thought to myself, I'm like, if he dies on that bed, like his legacy goes with him, and it would just be us, doing this whole like, we remember him as blah blah blah. Then that day changed the way I thought about food. Wow. So I thought to myself, you know what? No longer is this about, and I say this with the utmost respect, no longer is this about the Hmong people, but this is actually about my mom and dad. This is about their legacy. Yeah. They take care of people. That their whole life. The way that they treat my nieces and nephew is exactly the way they treated us, or the way they loved us. They care about us.
And you just wanted to carry that on onwards.
Yeah, and my thought is, this isn't even my story. It's their story, and I'm merely a curator of their story. And
like
so
a vessel of what that means.
Yeah, and just that idea of being a voice for the voiceless. My mom and dad gave up everything for us, and so, they were once asked by a news crew, and they said, hey, what was your dream of America? And my mom and dad couldn't answer that because they couldn't comprehend the idea of what dreaming meant. Yeah. So if you really think about where we are right now, there was a generation of men and women who gave up on dreams or to survive.
They were literally in survival mode, but we have the opportunity to thrive.
Yep. But even think about it, like, we have the privilege to dream is a privilege.
It is, yeah.
When you're not hunted down, when you're not being shot at, when you're not trying to figure out where your next meal is coming from. Like, when you're in that mode, you don't sit there and goes, I wonder what I'm passionate about. You know what I'm saying?
Right, that is true.
And so I'm like, holy crud, like, I have the ability to dream. I have the ability to make a living as a cook, where for them, as a cooking meant like survival. For me, it's a job, it's a passion.
It's a livelihood.
Yeah.
How did you not, because sometimes, like you said, it's a privilege, but how did you understood not to take that for granted? Because I know a lot of people today take that privilege for granted.
I think it's the way my mom and dad raised me. Because even finding out these stories of my father, he's never told us. And he's never wore it on his shoulder like, I'm a war hero, blah, 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 you know?
Like he
It's
didn't
always
brag about
about
it.
humility.
But it's when I meet guys who fought with my dad and I tell them that, oh, that's my father. And they're just like, and they take it back.
That's
They're
your
like,
dad?
yeah, they're like, son, do you, like, I remember one where a gentleman said to me, we were at, a party, and you know how like for all the men, like young men in the party, the older men, I was like, who's your father and your name? And, and so I told him who my dad was and his name. And remember, this dude just sits there, and the older gentleman, he just said, and he just sits there in silence. He goes, you know what, son, like your dad saved us in the war. Like he was the one who saved us. And I'm like, I was a little kid at the time. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, can I go play now?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that's very parallel to a lot of like how we all grew up. I mean, even in this room, because my grandfathers fought in the war and they would just go on about their stories. I'm like, okay, I want to go play now.
Yeah.
Because you had such a privilege. You didn't have to worry about those things. So
no, not at all. And so to kind of answer your question, Penny, like that was what they'd instilled into us.
Right.
And, it's so funny because you run, like in my college years, high school years, you try to run from who you are, that you actually run in a circle to back to where,
true.
So it's like, I was embarrassed of being Hmong. I hated telling people that, Hmong people don't have a country. Like, they're always like, are you Thai? I'm like, no, I'm not Thai. Are you
I'm not Chinese. I'm not this. Yeah.
But like, what are you? I don't know. Like, what country are you from? Well, I'm from, and you guys know, you guys played that game before.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you run so far from where, your home that you actually run back to it. And I realized that I always thought my dad was like this dorky guy and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, I'm just like him in every aspect, everything that's good about him. It's been bestowed upon me. And so what do I do with that? I can't just sit here and be like, look at these amazing things we're doing. No, we're not doing this. It's actually, all I'm really trying to do is reflect like what was instilled in me. And again, that's the whole heart of the brick and mortar Vinai.
Yeah.
Vinai, I was born in Vinai. My parents met in 78. They lived there until 88. I was born in 84. We moved to America in 88, 89. Just the history of Vinai. When we say Vinai within the Hmong community, we all know that name.
Yep.
It's very
The refugee
synonymous.
camp. Yep.
Exactly. To a lot of like other people who don't know our culture and our history, when I tell them the name, they're like, oh, well, explain more. And I love it because it's a little educational piece. Saying that
an opportunity to teach somebody else something.
Yep. So, from 75 to 92, the camp was from 75 to 92. It closed in 92. About 60,000 people came through the camp. Out of that 60,000, 90% of them were Hmong. Out of those 90% of the Hmong people, a lot of them ended up here in the Midwest. And so when you tell that story, we were just in a radio show the other day, and one of the ladies, and she, she's a journalist, so she's like, well, do you feel like Vinai, or being from a refugee camp, that's like a place where it's sad? It's a refugee camp. And I get where she's coming from, totally, because like right now, especially
They just don't have that understanding.
Yeah.
And that's not their fault.
No. And I said, it's not. It was because Vinai was a symbol of hope for us, our people at that time. It was like, if we can get there, we can be at least a little free.
Bit safe.
Yes. And it was a place of restart. Families, would meet up there. A chance of her stories of many orphans who would be taken in with other families. And that's what we want this restaurant to be. Like a place of refuge. Like we can't solve all your problems, but when you walk into the restaurant and you eat food with us and let us serve you, like maybe for that hour, like we'll forget your problems for a little bit, but then let's just sit here and eat, and let's eat together. And
I also think, I don't know this for sure, but I know a lot of family members find each other in Vinai during the war, and that's kind of their place to reconnect and find each other again.
So
which
it's
is
actually a
amazing.
place of hope and happiness and just survival.
Yeah.
It's not a place that's sad.
No, not at all. And because I think that there's different views of refugee camps, especially with the media and stuff going on today, stuff with like the detention centers and stuff, like there's this just kind of almost negative view. And I'm like, it's all about perspective, right? Yeah. So if you were a group of people that are hunted through the hills and mountains of Laos, being shot at, being killed, surviving all
Having
that.
to cross the Mekong
Yep,
River.
crossing the Mekong River.
Yep.
You survive all that. Like, just to have a hut to put your head down on and don't have to worry that, like, is somebody going to come at me? That's huge. And so, and that name is, you know, the whole restaurant is an homage to my mom and dad. A lot of the menu recipes and stuff is, you know, comes from their, you know, the stuff I've learned from them. We want to, one of the big things is we're doing a wood fire grill inside the restaurant. So a lot of the food will be coming off wood fire grill, just the way that they would cook in Laos and, you know, Thailand, and
Very rustic.
Yeah, how my mom and how my dad taught me how to cook over, you know, wood fire grill, stuff like that. A lot of the, you know, one of the vision is we want to create a little like galapao and a pho station for my mom, so she can like just like, so it's open kitchen.
Busy.
Yeah, so it's like an open kitchen, and you know, it's like when you go to like a pizza place where you see them making pizza right there. Like we want to try to create an open station like that where my mom can help like the other cooks and teach them how to, you know, roll pho and galapao and stuff like that.
Awesome.
So, I mean, in a nutshell, like in just a couple of words, like what can we expect from you for 2020 with Vinai and everything you're working on?
So right now we're finalizing a bunch of questions. You know, like building a restaurant is hard. It's like, you know, started from the ground up. So a lot of it is pushing people to get people to know about the Kickstarter. You know, we have to raise some funding there, and then after that, it's just keeping up with more. We want to do more pop-ups. You know, still have our home base at Sociable. So yeah, that's it. And then we'll see. You know how when you building projects are always like, you can say, oh, we'll be done in 9 months, and it's more 12 months. You know, it's just, you know. So we don't have an actual solid date yet.
But just the fact that announcement, I feel like shook the entire Hmong internet because
you think so?
Yeah.
Oh really? I don't know.
I think that because and I don't know if you can handle this right now, but I think because you are literally the ambassador, like the unofficial but official ambassador of how we are represented in a dish, like for Hmong cuisine. I think that a lot of people do have eyes on you in a good way because people are really excited to see what you have.
Thanks for the pressure, Sheng.
Oh. I know. Oh. I'm sorry. But you know what? With great power, you have great responsibility.
Comes great responsibility.
Yes.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Spider-Man. Yeah. The grandma said it.
Yeah. The uncle said it.
Oh, the
Uncle
said
Ben.
It?
Come
on.
on.
Dang it. Okay. Yeah. Not a real Marvel fan. Everybody knows now.
That just.
What a shame.
Okay, we need that Marvel sponsorship. Yeah, we love Marvel.
Hashtag Marvel.
Yeah. Hashtag Disney.
Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit here. And this is something that I'm introducing into this. So you are the first guinea pig for this. Are you excited?
Oh, boy. There we go.
We are going to play a game called Selfishly and Egotistically, the Sheng Game. Anyone who knows me, all my friends know what this is. I have been playing this with my friends for many, many years, and I find it really fun, but it's not always fun for the person. So essentially speaking, what this is it's a series of questions, and the questions are kind of random, but it's going to be not like super fast, but they're going to be asked in a row. Okay. And you just have to answer as truthfully as you can. It's kind of like truth or dare, but just the truth. Okay. I've got 10. I've got 10 for you, and you can skip 3. That's the game.
It's like it's truth and dare, but it's more truth.
Yeah.
That's the best way to explain
You should call the game Truth or Dare, but truth.
By Sheng Walding there. Okay, so I have 10 questions prepared for you, and you can skip 3. I'll give you that pass, right?
Oh boy.
They're not hard, I promise. I mean,
I'm not nervous now.
Really? This is what I wanted. I want you in the hot seat for the first time in your life. So, okay. So again, as fast as you can answer, but as truthfully as you can answer.
Yes,
okay,
ma'am.
I got 10. Ready? Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1. If you can't be a chef, what other careers would you consider?
I don't know how good I'll be at it, but I want to go in law enforcement.
What?
Yeah.
High five to that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I have friends that are in law enforcement, and it's a very challenging thing. Definitely, I respect the guys who are in it.
I love it.
But yeah.
Okay, next question. If you can only eat one of your own dishes for every meal for the rest of your life, what would that be and why?
Well, it's not really my own dishes, but
your own, like the dishes you serve.
Yeah, it's my mom's kutsal. So,
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty like popular in the Twin Cities. Like all the chefs talk about it. We just
Tiger
call
Bite,
it.
right?
No,
That's not.
no, we just call it Mama Vang's hot sauce because we couldn't think of a cool, sexy name for it. So we just call it. So my mom,
That is cool and sexy. What are you talking about?
They
Just
make
call it sexy sauce.
Yeah, they make 75 gallons a year for us.
What?
And then in the beginning of the year, and or more like in October, beginning of October, we'll harvest everything and they'll just make it. And then we have the whole year to ration it off. So come August, September, we're like giving it like it gets smaller when we But yeah, it's her hot sauce.
Okay, Mama Vang's hot sauce.
Mama Vang's hot sauce. Yeah.
That's what we got.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, you heard it here first.
Yeah.
All right, next question. So I'm quoting you now in a video that I saw.
Darn
Because
it.
I'm not a fangirl, right?
Wait, is it like when was the video? Because
I don't know, in the last year. But it's not a bad quote, I promise.
Okay.
All right, so question 3. You said food is everything of who you are on a plate. If you can only choose 3 main ingredients that could represent who you are on a plate, what would those ingredients be?
salt.
You're salty?
Yeah, salt. Some kind of acid. And then I would say like a nampa or
All right.
like a fish sauce or oyster sauce.
So salty, sour, and kind of umami taste.
Yeah.
All right. Cool.
You know,
Savory.
Yeah. So I think that every dish, that's what you're looking for. Like when you eat something great. Do you know what makes, like, a little side note, but do you know what makes like and ma? You know what makes that so great is all those flavors right there.
Because my mom cooks it.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
too.
yeah.
But it's like you need that fat.
It's
you
like
know?
that well-rounded taste
Yeah.
of everything you want in your mouth.
And then even like the the mustard green, you have a little bit of that bitterness. Like you need that, So it's just like, that's like the jam right there.
Yeah. That is like that. I literally, so side note also, I asked my mom and my dad yesterday because I did some research, obviously, but I've been following you, but I also asked my parents, I'm like, how do you define Hmong food? And my mom and they said,
Yep.
with greens.
Yep.
That's literally, it's
Yep.
simple, it's simplistic, but it's also like super soul food.
So for a cooking company, we did this big cooking competition, and one of our dishes that we serve was, we called it the savory tea. So we just took pork bone, we braised that, and then we put like in a coffee press, we put jaune joie, like the mustard green in the bottom. So and then we pour the hot stock in, and you press it down just like you would do tea or like
a coffee or something.
Press, and then you pour it out in a teacup. And that
in the world.
and we did that for this cooking competition. It's like this big it's called cochon. It's a big, like, they give you a whole pig and you have to cook it down. So there's like 5 chefs that they had to cook. We did that last year, and that was by far one of the most favorite dish. Like people kept coming back, and we just called it a savory tea. And literally it's Hmong food in a cup. And people would just like sip it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Who would have ever thought?
And I mean, it's simple. Like when that like soup or that stock hits your mouth, that's memory, right?
Yeah.
That's how you think of your childhood. You think
It's an
of everything.
explosion of all the memories you had growing up. That's insane. All right, ready for the next one?
Yeah, sorry, slowing you down.
No, it's okay. No, you're not slowing me down at all. Question 4. If you had to live without one of these, what would it be? Rice, meat, or pepper?
Ugh, you can't do that, man.
Sorry, bro.
Okay,
I can answer that.
I would say
what was that?
I'll go rice. Oh my gosh.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
Cause I'm a meat dude.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
You could do meat and pepper. That's like all you need, right?
Meat and pepper. But man, without rice, it's like,
It's not complete.
I know. What's life without rice? That's
I know,
a t-shirt.
That's true. Is it really?
No. We should make t-shirts. I said, what is rice?
You should.
Merch coming soon.
Yeah,
from Yia Vang.
rice without life without.
What is life without rice?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Number 5. If you had to relive one day over and over and over again, like the movie Groundhog Day, have you seen that movie?
Yeah.
Okay. What would that day be, and walk us slightly through that?
What? Oh man.
A day you actually lived.
Oh. Well, back in the war. No. I would.
Today. Just kidding.
This day. It's not over yet. I would probably. Oh, this sounds so dorky. In high school, I played high school football. One of the funnest days was, we played a team, and we were not expected to win at all. And we was in the playoffs in my senior year. We weren't expected to win at all. And because we were this like small no namer team that we made into the playoffs. It sounds super dorky and I sound like a jock right now, but whatever. And we went in and we beat them pretty good. And then they kind of got us in the newspaper. They're like, "Who is this team? Like, what is this like small school?" And I remember it was just like even when we were winning at the end, I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I thought we win, but not by this much, you know. And it was just like on the bus ride home, it was just like really glorious and it was fun. Yeah.
So that would be the day, huh?
That'd be the day. And,
day, day.
like I don't have, like it's because, like I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I can't be like, when the day my son was born, like I can't do that. Because if you have to answer those questions and if you're a parent, like you have to say that.
I know. I feel like you're guilted into saying, it was my wedding day.
Yeah. Or like be like, I had this cheese pizza once and it was amazing. Forget the birth of my son.
Or these donuts that were provided this morning.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good answer though. All right, so number 6, share something incredibly weird or random about you that not many people know.
Oh, okay, here
Sorry,
it is.
gotta do it.
Yeah, no, I'll do it. I love watching press interviews of like celebrities, especially when they're promoting a movie or whatever. Like I dork out on them, and I will go on YouTube and watch like hours of it. Like, you guys know what I'm saying? Like when they do junket interviews and it's like, that the actors come in and then they ask them questions and I love watching those guys. And then I also love.
You're a Team Z fan? Just kidding.
No, not like that kind of stuff. But like
I'm kidding, camera.
but more of, and then I love watching like
are you talking about like premiere interviews and stuff?
Okay, yeah. Like the ones where like they sit them down like in a hotel room. I love, and also I guess this is the weird people thing is I love people watching because it's fun to understand people and understand their personalities, and so it just
Okay.
I was in college. I was a comm major, so it was just like one of the funnest class I had in comm in college at UW La Crosse was nonverbal comm, where it was all about nonverbals. And it's super interesting.
Like movement, facial structures.
Like facial movements, like hand movements, like how people naturally
That's kind of like that show. Sorry, segue.
Lie to Me.
Yes, Lie to Me. Because that's literally what their entire thing. And that's actually based off of an actual psychology.
Yep, that's actually the professor who it's based off of his theories and his books. Those were the books we
So tell us what me and Penny are doing right now.
I don't know.
Okay.
We'll do it off air.
All right, we'll do it off air.
Yeah.
All right, next question. That actually is a really good segue for the next question. If you can cook for or share a meal with anyone, live or dead, who would that be?
One person?
One person only. You can cook for or share just a meal with.
I would say, man. I don't know. I think like the chefy answer for me is Anthony Bourdain, because I just think he's a super interesting. I'm not super. You know what I'm saying? Like he just seems like a really sweet dude.
I feel like he's transcended so many things for just the world, but culinary for sure.
Like I feel like I should say that, and I definitely would be one of those dudes that would have been awesome just to share a meal with and just pick his brain. But
because he's so worldly and knowledgeable and wise.
Yeah, and I've heard some people who've worked with him, like that I've met. Like I've heard so many great things, and just like the behind the scenes, like what kind of person he was, and just his, he put the Hmong people on the map when he went out to Laos to La Pamban area, and he did an interview with a bunch of Hmong people out there, and he went into Laos, and but. I honestly, and it sounds super dorky, but like I just love eating with my mom and dad. Like, it is. It is so.
The best meals are when you have your mom and dad there and lecturing you. But. Okay, next question. If there was a fire, and let's hope there's never a fire, and I'm so sorry that I even brought this up. It was very dark. If there was a fire and you can only save one thing from your restaurant, what would it be?
My laptop.
Really?
Everything's in there. It's just like
not even your Hmong knives.
No, my laptop. We can always get more of that.
Yeah,
but it's
that's
just like
true.
There's just so much, and I don't believe in the cloud. I don't know where this is being saved in the cloud.
It's not safe in the cloud.
I'm like, what is this cloud everyone thinks?
That is true.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's the first thing. Like my laptop is like kind of my security blanket. Like I found that out. Where it's like. I literally when I go into the kitchen, I bring my backpack. I'm like, why am I bringing my laptop? Like, it's like I'm so used to having it with me now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like everything's in there.
All right, laptop. That's where that's a gold mine. That's a gold mine. That's your weakness now. You just
now everyone's like, go get his laptop. All you're gonna do is just find just a bunch of bills and invoices in there. That's what you're really gonna find.
Yeah.
That's why people are
for
like,
Vinai, the new restaurant.
yeah, people
coming
are
soon.
yeah, people are always like, hey, like, why don't you change your password? I'm like, because all you're gonna find is that I'm poor and I just have a bunch of bills and invoices that we have to pay.
And some selfies, maybe.
No.
Just kidding. Okay, question 9. What is the first thing you would do if you won the lottery? Let's say, I don't know, $100 million.
Fund this whole restaurant.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. That's probably it. Like there's a lot of projects that we're excited about, and so I love to to fund that. I always joke about getting a Tesla. Like, I'm gonna buy a Tesla. I don't know. I sat in a Tesla once, and I'm like, oh no, this is a bad idea. Like, I want it so bad.
Now your standards have been raised. You can't go back now.
Okay, you can't go back.
You can't go back.
It's like, okay, so this is super dorky, but it's like, like the back door closing where you can just hit the button and it comes down. So my girlfriend's car is like, it's like that, but my car's not like that. So when she had her car, I'm like, and then when I go back to my car, I'm like, oh, I'm so dumb. I have to pull it down. Like, I'm like,
You're spoiled.
You're
now
like
at this
hashtag
point.
first world issues, right?
Oh my gosh,
you're like,
yeah.
oh, I could have stupid button.
I have to actually shut my own door.
Yeah.
So I get so mad with my own door. I'm like,
Talk about privilege.
That's what happens.
I know. I'm like, my parents crossed the Mekong River, so I can just press a button.
Right. Oh my gosh. All right. Last question. I made it semi-easy for you because I wanted to spare you. Question 10. Last one. If you had a magic wand to make anything in the world possible for you or for anyone, what would you do with it?
I think sounds weird, but I want to find a better system, a better way for restaurants, because restaurants is such a hard, like, it's a small, like, profit margin, and like people work hard.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work, and find a way to take care of the restaurant people, like a lot of people see the servers, but they don't see the back of the house people. They don't know what the cooks are going through. They don't know what the dishwasher's going through. The
custodian.
Yes, like all the people who are actually the backbone. And so there's always this big argument about front of the house, back of the house, and it's almost a divide where it's like, hey, we're a team. So how do we create a team that that's sustainable?
It's a lot of pressure, but how would you do that if you could do it? What would that look like?
There's so many different theories, but I think it starts from leadership.
I totally agree.
Trickle down leadership. I mean, you understand, running your own place. It's like, how do we build a culture here that's safe for everyone? How do we build a culture where people feel like they have a voice?
And they have pride coming into work, and they want to be there.
Yeah, because the study has been shown in college. We were reading through the studies. The studies have been shown that, so basically the max amount of salary that makes people are driven by money, to work. The max amount for the salary is $78,000 a year.
Wow.
Yeah, like you would think it's more, right? But that's it.
But that's kind of that's insane because you would think it's more.
Yeah, but it's just after that, because
after that it's
about
you define it yourself.
Do you love what you're doing? And so I would think that restaurant world is always kind of seen as I'll do this until I can do my real job, But it's like, man, there's the people make great living in here, and we get to, I tell a lot of my cooks, I'm like, we're not just cooks, we're storytellers. We get to tell a story about who we are. And majority of the cooks that work with us, they're not Hmong, they're like Mika and Chinese and, but they just love being a part of what we're doing. Yeah.
So not only do you want to develop a team, are you thinking more also creating opportunities for people?
Definitely.
As well, right?
Yeah, definitely. So when
that becomes their livelihood then. At that point.
So one of the pressure, we don't have a lot of people working for us, but one of the pressures that I really just put on myself and say, hey, I'm going to figure this out is when we first started, it was me and my cousin. And so with my cousin, it's like, hey bro, excuse me. It's this is what, we can afford to pay. And so we were just this. And I just didn't take a check. And so I'm like, so I had all these side hustles where it's I would teach cooking classes and do this. And so, but eventually when you start having 4 or 5 people working for you and they start you have W-2s for them and everything, and you
they have
realize
families.
Yeah, and this is part of their what they make, like it changes the game when
it does.
but it's just like, okay.
Now, that's a very interesting thing. Like, I did wonder. Me and Penny were talking about this earlier because Penny is a business owner as well. And you have to wear different hats. If you want to do something you want to do, you have to wear different hats.
Oh, definitely.
You wear a chef hat, but then now you have to wear the business hat.
Yeah.
How do you navigate through that?
Yeah. So I listened to this really cool podcast, and they were saying they were talking to these chefs and these cooks, restaurant owners in Chicago, and one of them said the problem with chefs today is that they're 90% artists and 10% business people. And that's why restaurants fail in under like a year, because they're like, they want the art side. For me, it's what my father taught me. My father goes, understand your weaknesses and surround yourself with people that are actually that can help plug those holes.
Yeah.
So my business partner, Dave, he's a lawyer by trade. He knows numbers really well. He knows all the HR stuff really well. He does all the books, on all the money stuff.
You just have to admit that those are not areas that you're good at.
And I'm completely okay with that. And so Dave and I, when we make decisions together, I'll look at him and, hey, bro, like this is you, and I totally trust you. When it comes to the food side or when it comes to the culture side, he's just like, yep, well, like you got that. And to understand where it's like, I think that where people fail is when they're like, I can do all of this, and it becomes a pride thing. It becomes an ego thing, right? Where it's like, hey, like I can do all this. Like I'm the guy. And the thing that I always say to the guys when we cook with is I always say, don't be a hero. Like this is a team. Like you don't need to be the one guy that everything's been. Like don't be a hero. Like
be truthful and honest about the areas of expertise that you have, but the areas of improvement you still need to make. Yeah.
So I know that there's I have a lot of holes. But lately I've been, learning to be okay. Like I don't have to be the best at everything, but I just have to wrap my head around a couple of things. So like even like build outs, like you got to know real estate. You got to know zoning laws. You got to know like
what's council, health codes.
Yep. Health codes, council people, you got to know like, what are the rules here for this neighborhood?
Yeah.
And all of that, like that's not the sexy side of cooking, because everybody
really, because I thought that was.
Yeah, it's like, hey, let me tell you about health codes.
Let me tell you quickly about the laws regarding health codes.
Like, oh yeah, tell me more. Yeah, that's the stuff. But I like one of the things that I always say is like, you got to be okay to know who you are and where your strength is. Play to your strength, but then know where. So that's why that's why Dave is incredible. He's such an incredible asset. It's
a well-rounded balance between this partnership, because I think not just your background in PR, and I think you're a people person, but you are basically the face of your brand, of your own brand.
I really so our PR marketing group is like been pushing that, and I'm just like because for me it's like there's a whole team of people behind me. Like it's like you don't see these guys who are working their tails off, and it's like that's why I love saying we. It's not a I thing, it's a we thing,
And I think that's where your heart is, you know what I mean? Like that's your humble side. You don't want it to be about you. You want it to be about the people, the team, the environment, all of that.
Because it does take like literally a village to create a concept and make it happen.
Yeah, and does. And there's many people that have, came out and like, laid it out with us too, that, are like kind of moved on, and it's just paying homage to them, and so it's tough, for sometimes, because I'm like, I understand where our creative team is coming from. And it's like, hey, we have to put you more out there.
That's the business part of things. So
which I'm still getting used to.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
So before we close up, because we're running out of time here, you mentioned how much not just this new restaurant means to you and your family, your parents more in particular. And I remembered seeing that your dad kind of influenced the, I guess, the parts of you on how you handle meats, like the rougher parts of you, right? And your mom's more of like the soul and the love and the intricacies between things. But them together as a fusion has made you who you are to some extent as how you identify as a chef.
Yeah.
What do you feel your legacy will be, and what do you want to provide for the next generations, not just of cooks, but just Hmong people in general? And what does that look like for you, and what do you want to accomplish?
Yeah. So
huge question.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I'll just be honest. It's kind of funny because sometimes our one of our designer and she's like one of the creative directors and designers. She's the one that's put the logo together and everything, and her team's incredible. And what she likes to do is she's like, hey, yeah, like just kind of, she'll ask me a few questions and just let me talk, and then she'll type down everything I say. So the other day I saw this quote that she typed that, that she wrote, and I'm like, Rose, this is amazing. Like, I love what you said here. She goes, you said that, right? And I'm like, what? And she's like, no, you said that to me. I'm like, when? And so they, like, the whole team just laughed at me, and I'm like, what? But I guess I said it. I don't remember saying it, but I guess she said I said it. But the one thing that I guess if you want to say, I can't even say my legacy, our legacy, is that I want this next generation of like young Hmong people to know, like, we are an echo of the past. And for the first time in our history, in Hmong history, we get to write our own future. Like, I mean, like, as I think about that, I think about we are children of the war, right? We come from that. Our parents, they couldn't write their own future. Like, it was given to them. War came on their footsteps.
It was always a war zone.
Yes.
Them growing up, it was always a war zone.
And it was like, we'll make the best of what we have. My dad was asked by a news guy, are you mad at America for, like, backing out, and when they promise all these things? And my dad said, he wasn't. He's like, I'm not. He's like, it's war. Things happen in war. Things that not everybody will understand.
Not all things are always fair in love and war, right? Yep. That's what they would say.
And he wasn't mad at all. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much humility and humbleness in that. But then I realized that, like, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, they weren't able to write their future. But for the first time in Hmong history, we get to write our future. And that, like, it's a weight, but then constantly remembering too, like, man, we are an echo of our past. So let's not forget where we came from. Let's not forget the sacrifices that were made, by the men and women who died, so that we then have the ability to write our future. So then when you're writing your future, please think about the past. So, because, like, I think that when people think of the future, it's like, it's me, it's about my legacy. But no. You are, you're a vessel that this incredible rich history is in, and you're a fragile vessel. Yeah. Now you get to carry that with you out there. And so, I think that that's the one thing. And that's what we want to try to do with our food. That's what we want to try to do with the restaurant. So the restaurant images in the restaurant will be really reflective of, of my mom and dad, which is of the Hmong people, and so I think about that.
That's amazing.
That's so special, yeah.
Like, I have no words at this point because I'm just relished inside. Relish, you see what I did there?
Yeah. I
am just engulfed in this moment. And I am just so honored that you were able to come join us today. And we thank you so much because I know your time is precious. And
that's fine.
It's been an amazing journey just even meeting you. So
thank you so much for coming on. Hey, on a side note, like, I think what you guys are doing is amazing. Like, I guess, like I texted you, like, I have not seen anything like this. If you want to even say, like, in the Hmong community, like, and like the professionalism, just the cool design, like even from an art standpoint, like, it's really cool. And I think that how you guys are approaching this.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So it's like,
that means a lot.
Like, to me, it's like, dude, this is something I want to get behind. So yeah, so I really think this is really cool.
Thank you for being a part of the journey.
Yeah. Thanks.